James was walking home from school when he heard something sloshing around in the water. He slowly walked over to check and saw a dog paddling for dear life, struggling to stay afloat. He looked tired and looked at James, tugging at his heart. James hastens his pace and runs towards the dog and pulls him out of the river. When James puts the dog back on the ground, he looked at the dog and noticed the animal had strange stains around its belly. He wanted to check it up close but was a little apprehensive to creep closer to the dog. After long examinations, the results finally came back. The vet already knew it wouldn't be good, given how the dog looked. He logs into the computer, looks at the results, and turns pale. While the police were on their way, the vet asked James how he found the dog. James said that he was walking home from school when he heard some strange sounds. The sounds came from this river nearby, he knew. It sounded like someone needed help. James did not have to think twice, as he immediately jumped into the river to rescue a dog. While he was in the river, he noticed that it would not be easy to free the dog. The dog was completely stuck in the branches. After a lot of trying, James finally gets the dog loose. He pulled the dog out of the river. When he put the dog on the ground, it refused to walk, and then James saw something very shocking. When James and the dog were out of the water, James immediately noticed some weird stains on the dog's belly. He had never seen a dog with these strange stains before, so he decided to help this harmless dog. James did not know what could possibly be happening, so he decided to search for answers on the internet. James was suddenly disturbed when his parents came home. They saw the dog lying in his bed. They became very angry with James for bringing a dog in that condition into the house. The dog was not welcome in their parents' house. James' parents were not happy with this situation in their home. They didn't want a filthy dog that was probably sick. James started to beg his parents to help the poor dog. He explained that he found the dog all stuck in the branches of the river and nobody was helping him. The parents saw how much James cared about the dog and finally gave in and decided to help James. James kept insisting on helping the dog. They went to the vet at high speed, as the dog's condition worsened during the drive. They had to get there quickly because this dog needed to get help and be saved from his unbearable pain. They rushed to the vet. Once they arrived, the vet assistant told them that they had to make an appointment. Rick explained that the dog was in terrible condition and needed help right away. When the vet assistant saw the unexplained stains on the dog, she understood the urgency and called the vet. The vet asked James where this dog came from, and James explained where he found it. The vet didn't hesitate and grabbed his gear and began his tests on the dog. The vet has had a lot of experience after years of helping dogs. In all these years, he had never seen something like this before. After doing several tests on the dog, he could not get any solid results about what could be wrong with him. The vet tells James and his parents that he has to do some special examinations on the dog to find out what this dog is suffering from. The vet took the dog to the lab to do some special examinations. When James wanted to pick up the dog, the vet told him the dog was not allowed to leave the lab. James and his parents were confused about why the dog was not allowed to come home but accepted the vet's request. Rick calls his wife Emma and tells her to pick up James from school. They had to go to the vet immediately. Emma became a little bit scared about why they all had to come down to the vet. The vet asked several questions to James and his parents. The questions were quite weird. It was more about where he found the dog rather than the results of the test. The vet ended the questioning by saying that he needed to call the police if James didn't cooperate. James is telling the truth. However, the vet called the police, and once the police arrived, James needed to come to the police station for further questioning. James' parents are crying and begging the police officers to not take him to the police station. What did he do wrong here? He is just a 10-year-old boy who found a dog and tried to help him. Unfortunately, the begging and crying of James' parents didn't help, and James got arrested and was put in the police car. He looked his parents scared in the eyes when they were driving off. James' parents stood there helpless, watching their son being arrested. James had never been in a police car and was impressed by what it looked like, but he was especially scared of the feeling of being arrested. Once at the police station, they treated James like a criminal. They were rude and pushed him into the interrogation room. No questions were asked, and people were angry looking at James. He then was sitting alone in a dark, creepy room. Then an officer came into the interrogation room and started asking James questions. He was mostly asking where he found the dog and what his connection was with it. James explained that he found him on the way back home from school and never saw the dog before. He has said this over 100 times now. The police were very aggressive in questioning. Then one of the officers noticed that James was very scared. The police decided to be open about the situation towards James because they no longer saw him as a suspect. When James heard the reason why the dog was in this critical state, he was shocked. Last few months, the police found a lot of dogs in the same condition as James' dog. However, these substances make the dog sick, and most of the time, they end up dead. To find out who was drugging these dogs, the police opened a case. This serious crime needed to be solved, but it turned out to be very challenging. For months, the police were looking for the criminal organization that was responsible for the death and torture of these poor dogs. The police had a suspect in sight, Cray Johnson. Recent operations had led the police towards Cray Johnson, but this time they could have the evidence to take action. The leader of the criminal organization was called Cray Johnson, aka Crazy Johnson. He was a well-known figure in the underworld. He was detained several times for various felonies. The police strongly suspect that Cray Johnson and his gang are responsible for the dead dogs. Until now, the police had no evidence to know the whereabouts of the dog fighting and also no evidence to arrest the criminal organization of Cray Johnson. But James' dog might lead to a breakthrough, as it is the first dog that was found alive. James eventually came up with a plan, which surprised the officers because it wasn't actually that bad. They even decided to follow up on it. The police decided to provide the dog with a GPS tracker. The idea was to leave the dog in the hood of the criminal organization to lure out Crazy Johnson. He should take the dog back to the fight. The police would then be able to track the GPS tracker of the dog to the fighting event and catch them in the act. The plan was put into action, and the dog was given a GPS tracker before being dropped off near Cray Johnson Hood, where he was active. The police waited a few hours, but nothing happened. But then, finally, they saw Cray heading outside. Immediately, Cray spotted the dog, and you could see the confusion on his face. It took a while before the police saw some significant movement in the GPS tracker. The police arrived at the scene and discovered that there was no area where dogfights were taking place. However, they noticed Cray talking to someone else in a car with the dog. A deal appeared to be in progress. The police decided to take action. The police saw Cray was involved in a drug deal and decided to arrest him. Even though it was enough to put Cray away, there was more to it. Cray Johnson was put into an interrogation room so the police could start asking questions about the dogfighting event. At first, Cray did not see a reason to help the police, as he would never snitch on them. Cray told the police he would only cooperate if he got a reduced sentence. The police have thought about this for a long time. They decide to agree to Cray's request to end the dogfighting. Cray told the police everything they should know to put an end to this nightmare. The police had waited months for this, and everyone could not wait to handcuff these psycho criminals. The police cars are prepared and ready for the operation. They took down 2 criminal organizations, and 56 people were sent to jail. The police found 120 dogs. The one from James got special attention because he was so crucial in this entire police investigation. A few days had gone by, and James had not heard anything from the police. They told his parents that it was normal procedure and that they would take it over from there. But today, the doorbell rang. James opened the door and saw the police standing there. The police wanted to tell James that they had caught the criminals responsible for all this and that they had a small surprise. It was the dog James found in the river, healthy and smiling. This story is a work of fiction created for entertainment. Characters and events are the products of the author's imagination. The images shown are used for illustration only.